Okay, I'm going to sit up in my chair now, Martin. All right. Well, Martin, I
Uh,
appreciate you inviting me in for a conversation about the state of GP and some of the things that we're hearing out there and some of the things that we're seeing. So it's always it seems like a very timely topic right now, and something that I look forward to talking to you about a little bit more.
it certainly is, Mark. I'm, a big fan of Dynamics GP. And I still wish it could go on for forever, but it's not. So
Right.
I think it's a position now where thousands and thousands, probably 20,000 customers need to make a decision in the next couple of years. I've got the date of December 31, 2029 in front of me that says end of product enhancements, regulatory updates, service packs, and technical support. So that's 3 years, 3.5 years from now.
Yep.
Um, and that's kind of there. Now, that doesn't mean people will be forced to stop using Great Plains. Is that correct?
Yeah, no, that's correct. I mean, right now, since Microsoft moved to a modern, product release life cycle, there's still enhancements that are being released on an annual basis, actually twice a year, usually April and October timeframe. So you're still going to have those releases coming out. There's not much substance to them. It's mostly security related type activities, maybe some bug fixes. But we're going to continue to see that through that 2029 period. But afterwards, that's it. And so you're going to be on a product that is no longer has releases associated with it. If you're running payroll, GP payroll, those year-end updates are what Microsoft pushed out in the back. And so those are no longer going to be coming. So you're going to be faced with, okay, maybe I have to manually update my payroll records and payroll taxes in the system. So there's a lot of things that companies need to consider. And like you, I mean, GP has been very good to me for many, many years. And it's been a wonderful solution for a lot of companies for a long, long time. But, Microsoft has made it very, very clear that their future is the cloud. And the solution, the equivalent solution in the cloud is Dynamics 365 Business Central. And so, that's where they're really pushing clients at this point is to make that migration. You've got time, but in essence, you have to plan for that and make that migration.
So tell me a little bit, Mark, about Ace Micro and your customer base. So you've got a fairly large Great Plains customer base.
Oh yeah.
You've been doing this for many years. What are you telling your customers right now? If somebody
Well,
calls you tomorrow and says, "Hey, I've been on GP for 10 years. I love it. I know it. I know it backwards. My whole company runs on it. My reports are fantastic. I don't think I need this cloud thing." What do you
right.
tell them?
Well, and that's tough. So let me answer a couple of questions there. Ace Micro, yes, we've been in the space for 20, 23 years. We started off as a Great Plains reseller back before Microsoft even owned the product. And then quickly Microsoft came in, bought it, and we've been, a value-added reseller for Microsoft in Great Plains for quite some time. But we started seeing the writing on the wall probably 5, 6 years ago, when Microsoft was making, strong suggestions that the cloud was their future, and this thing out there called BC, and I can't even remember the predecessors' names, and we kind of understood it was coming. There was nothing formal, but we knew this change was occurring. And so we have been, as a partner, really on a soapbox for the last certainly 3 to 4 years with our clients saying, guys, you need to start thinking about this. We don't have anything firm from Microsoft yet, but you need to start thinking about it because the writing's on the wall. And so I think from a partner's perspective, not just Ace Micro, but all GP partners and ISVs out there, independent software vendors, we've been educating our clients on the benefits of the cloud and educating them on specifically what Microsoft's direction is and what's that going to mean to us as, GP partners, GP resellers. So I think a lot of it has been education. We have over 125 GP clients. We've probably migrated maybe 25 of them, so a couple dozen. that have, been, I wouldn't say early adopters at this point because BC's been out for quite some time, but we have successfully migrated those clients to BC. And, like any migration at first, especially the early ones, it's a little tough, it's a little rocky, but we've got better tools and better capabilities and better understanding. And so these migrations are going a lot better and a lot cleaner. But you still, to your point, Martin, we've got, at least 100 more clients that are still on GP. And some of them are sitting there going, why do I need to move? And it's a tough question. You're right. Why do I need to move? If I've got a car out in my driveway and it runs just fine and it gets me from point A to point B, why do I need to buy a new car?
Well,
but at some point,
it's because that new car has a CD player, and you've still got a cassette player in yours. But the argument's strong. That's great. But I don't listen to CDs. I still have cassettes. I'm not ready for that. So yeah. What do you see as the big, other than compliance, and the fear of old systems? What are the top couple of things that you go, look, if you get to BC, you get X, which makes it well worth the transition?
Well, and in my mind, I think what Microsoft has done, that when I look at GP versus BC, and I've always preached leveraging the entire Microsoft stack. Okay, so if you look at as an organization, your ERP solution, is that all of your technology? No. Is it a big part of it? Absolutely. It's a big piece of the pie, but it's not the whole pie. And so when you start looking at, my ability to operate within my ERP system, but also leverage the capabilities of Microsoft across the stack. So what I mean by that is integration to Outlook, integration to Excel, to Word. You start getting into Power BI and reporting and data visualization, and the ability to bring those things right into your system, and then open up a can of worms and talk about AI and my desire to sit there and start leveraging AI for my organization, because that's coming, and that's coming fast. And so in my mind, where GP was a good solid ERP system, and serves its purpose for a lot of organizations, does it do all that? Absolutely. But when you look at it in comparison to Business Central and how you can leverage all of these other tools that we all use, I live in my inbox. Most people do. And so the native capabilities and integration to the rest of the Microsoft stack, and to the Power Platform, and to Copilot and AI, that's where organizations are really, really going to benefit from that. Couple that with the fact that you're no longer having to go through these massive updates every couple years. You're no longer having to pay for and support hardware and OS and databases and backups. So you look at the whole infrastructure side, and there's a strong reason why you should make that change.
I'm going to, a couple of topics I want to come back to later on, particularly AI and some of the things you talked about the tips and tricks and things you've learned about the migration and implementation. But before I go there, you mentioned, I'm going to play devil's advocate for a little bit. I'm going to be that GP.
That's you're going to be that guy. Okay.
I'm going to be that guy. So Mark, what I really care about is my debits and credits, my trial balance, that I can produce a P&L. Now you want to talk to me about data visualizations, and I just want an accurate P&L, and I want a bank rec that reconciles, and I want a debtors ledger that reconciles, and I want to know that I've collected all my AR. That's what I use GP for. That's my thing. Right. So you're pretty workflows, and I don't need purchase order automations, and I don't think I need any AI to tell me how to do my accounting job. What is it for me that I really am missing out on if I don't go to BC?
Well, an accounting system is an accounting system is an accounting system. GL is GL, AP is AP, AR is AR. We all need to, our big reports. We need a P&L, and we need the income statements. Is BC, have they found a silver bullet on how to do that better. I don't know if I could speak to that. I mean, all accounting systems by default should do that and should do that well.
Look, and I think you've hit something important there. There's not been a lot of change in accounting standards in the last 30 years since I trained as an accountant. It's
GAAP is GAAP. Okay, it doesn't change that much. So, am I going to rock your world in any of those areas? Well, yeah, there's some certain little things. There's where in GP you've got a serialized chart of chart of accounts, and which is extremely inflexible and something that when you deploy GP, you define that chart. And maybe it's a 3-segment chart, a 4-segment chart with your natural account in the middle somewhere. And maybe now you have within BC, you have a dimensionalized chart of accounts. So really, you have a lot more flexibility there to be able to manipulate your chart and add and or change that chart depending on where the business is going, how it's changed, what you need to report on. So I would say from a GL standpoint, that segmented chart of accounts to a dimensionalized chart of accounts is pretty cool. Okay. And gives you a lot of flexibility. So if there's one area I could sit there and point at and go, wow, okay, this is pretty nice here.
That's a big deal.
And so I think that's probably a very, very big deal for people to wrap their brains around and realize how much more flexibility that gives them.
All right, I'm gonna be, and I agree. That's a good one. I think the importance of that reporting is key. Right. What about the fear of the cloud? It's still real. I've got access to my data right now. It's in the server room. I back it up. I put a copy of that backup in my trunk every Friday, and I take it home and I store it in the woodshed.
Yes.
And I've got my data.
And my pillow. I sleep on it.
It's precious. Now you're going to tell me that Microsoft's going to control my data, and then they're probably going to turn around next year and find a way to charge me to get access to my own data. I'm nervous about that because I've spent 20 years building my business. This is critical to me, and I'm distrustful of what's going on in the cloud.
Well, and that's a great, and it was funny because pre-COVID, when we were having these conversations, we also resell Microsoft Dynamics. I still call it CRM, but call it 365 sales, marketing, service. And you never had conversations or concerns about my data when it came to CRM. It's like, yeah, I don't care where it is. As long as it does what I need it to do, I don't care. Now, you talk to a CFO pre-COVID, and they're like, my data's where? A cloud? Which cloud? What cloud? Can I touch that cloud? Can I feel that cloud? Mm-hmm. Can I go over and feel it and it's warm and it's humming, So, yeah, but there's been a great deal of maturity that's taken place, especially with COVID. When COVID hit, I think the understanding and the appreciation for the cloud grew exponentially over that period of time because people realized I need secure systems with remote access. Okay. And I don't care as a we typically work in upper small to mid-sized companies. I don't care who you are and what you do. You can't spend more money than Microsoft does to secure your data. You just can't. You can't do it. And so if you think your systems are more secure than what Microsoft is hosting in Azure, I'd ask you to look in the mirror a little bit harder because I don't think that's possible. So it's the security issue. I think over time, accountants and senior management within organizations have become more comfortable with it and realize that they can't compete with a Microsoft. And when you look at the statistics too, when you look at these attacks, these vicious attacks that are happening across the board, the majority of them are not on major corporations. They're on small and medium-sized businesses. Because major corporations have spent millions and millions and millions of dollars to secure their systems. And smaller companies can't. They can't do that. And now through the cloud, they're able to leverage, kind of economies of scale through Microsoft to get enterprise level security at a very, very low cost. So in my mind, I think it's more appealing to have your solutions in the cloud. If you still want to back it up locally, you can do that if you want to. I don't think Microsoft will ever take the position that they own your data. You always own your data. You're always in control of your data. So I think those questions, just doing it, an intelligent evaluation of yourself and how much you've invested in security in your own small company versus what Microsoft invests, you can't compare the two.
No, that's I think a very accurate answer, and it's the only way really now. I don't
Yeah.
think there's
Yeah.
much change. It's
No.
interesting. I work across the Atlantic at times in Europe, and we do a bunch of work there, and there's still a slower attitude in that part of the world. They're very serious about their GDPR compliance and their data regulations. And we've had numerous customers come and say we just aren't going to go to the cloud. We are going to keep our data locally. So it's an interesting trend I've started to see a little more over in Europe.
Oh yeah. Yeah, but then the opposite in Europe, where in Europe nobody writes a physical check.
Right. Oh, not for the last 40 years. Yeah.
Right. So I still have clients here in the US. They're like, no, I want a physical check. I'm going to sign that check. I don't even trust electronic signature.
Yep.
So it's the dynamics between the two areas of the world are interesting there.
I'll give you one more hard one before we go to some easy questions. So to your customer that has reached this point, and I said, okay, I agree, Mark, I'm listening to you. It's time for a change. But you just told me accounting's accounting. So really, I should be out looking at other solutions in the market, in the mid-market that I'm in. Why would I just go to the next Microsoft product when they just killed off the one that I loved, when I could be looking at NetSuite, I could be looking at Sage, I could be looking at Acumatica, I guess, are probably the three main players in that space.
Yeah, those are probably the three that we run into.
That or something niche, something very specific to a very specific vertical.
Right.
What's your play? I know you've already talked about the Microsoft stack and all those things around it. I suspect that's your answer.
That's part of my answer. That is part of the answer. I think, again, you can look at other ERP systems and say, yep, accounting is accounting, and Sage might be able to do, exactly what I need to do, or, NetSuite, or, whomever, Acumatica, whomever. But again, I go back to, and I've preached this for a long time, even when I was in, custom applications development, pick a platform. As an organization, the more and more you want data to flow freely, which, is something that you guys do, pick a platform. It's always easier if you pick a platform. You want to pick Oracle? Fantastic. Go with Oracle. You want to go with IBM? Pick IBM. But go all Oracle. Go all IBM. If you want to pick Microsoft, go Microsoft. And the story behind Microsoft, and especially with BC and the integration to all the tools that Microsoft owns all this. So Sage can make a claim that they integrate to this Microsoft tool, or Acumatica can make a claim that Microsoft owns it, Martin, and nobody's going to do it better than they do. So I think that's one big benefit. The second thing is that Microsoft is, they value all of these clients, these GP clients, and at one point it was like 40 or 45,000, I think, in North America that were on GP.
And yeah, I'm guessing those numbers. So nobody's publishing them. So I take what I think the current state might be.
And that might be current state is more like 2025, because a lot of them have moved. But the other thing I talk to my clients about maybe now is a good time to go out and look at the market and shop the market, and look at some of these other solutions, because you want to go into this situation with 110% confidence. Okay, you don't want to be going into it haphazardly. So, so in some situations, I do have clients that are shopping around, but I will also tell you that Microsoft values this client base, and they've provided us as partners with tools to be able to do one is called the AIM assessment. Okay, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it or not, but it stands for Accelerate, Innovate, and Move. And so Microsoft is funding us as partners to go in and take a look at your GP instance and look at everything that you're doing in GP, map it to Business Central, and come up with a plan of, okay, functionality-wise, technically, data, all of these things, how does it map across, and then how do we enhance it? Okay, because we don't want to just do apples to apples. We want to do apples to apples, and then we want to add a few more apples on top, maybe some cinnamon, maybe some sugar. So they're paying us to do that. They're also providing GP clients that are current on their renewals with discounted licensing. So you can get dual licensing rights right now, continue to run GP, continue to be supported, but have a BC instance over here and BC licensing that's discounted for a period of time. So we can spin up that sandbox and go through the process of migrating you over. And then when we're ready to cut over, we can cut over very, very easily. And thirdly, they're providing deployment dollars. So they're funding some of my services for that migration.
Okay.
So when you go out and say, okay, I need to move from GP to Business Central, my cost is going to be here. If I go GP to Acumatica or Sage, that's a brand new deployment. My cost is going to be up here. So when you get down to it and you look at these other solutions, which God bless you, go out there and do it. I don't think they're going to come in as affordable and as economical as Microsoft is trying to make it, because they want to retain that client base, and they're putting money where their mouth is, which is nice.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, I'll throw a little plug in here for some of the E1 solutions where, we like you had a large GP base after, our OEM with Microsoft on SmartLess Builder and Extender, and so we got a lot of customers, and we saw some moving to NetSuite, and we saw some moving to Sage, and we saw some moving. So we've built our solutions to provide a pathway for those customers, no matter what they choose. The tools that they use now on GP in Smart Connect and SmartLess Builder, they will go with them to wherever they choose. So we certainly love Microsoft. We push Business Central, and the bulk of our customers are going to Business Central as we're putting a lot of our time. But yeah, there are options, and people need to choose the tool that's best for them.
Absolutely. And going back to your original point, I'm here, and I would hope most partners take the same stance. I'm here to hopefully lead my client in a direction that's best for them.
Yeah.
Okay. And I hope that is Business Central, but not in all cases. I've had clients move. I had one client go to Acumatica. I had another client go to NetSuite. So that happens, and we as partners have to accept that and respect that, and support them with that. And to your point, I'm able to assist them in that move because I can leverage tools like PopDoc, which is a E1 tool, a great tool that helps me with their data and house and store their data for them if they are moving to a totally disparate system. So we see that. And then for those companies that say, you know what, I want to be on premise, all I do is Glapper, GLAPAR, and BankRec. Maybe you don't need a BC. Maybe you don't need a GP anymore. Yep. Maybe you need a QuickBooks. And I've made that recommendation on occasion, saying, you know what, QuickBooks is a pretty daggum good solution. If you don't think you're going to grow anymore, you don't think you're going to get any more complex, and all you're doing is GLAPAR and BankRec, maybe QuickBooks is a great answer for you.
There's some options, yeah. No, I understand that. So for those larger customers, then obviously you've done some of these implementations. What are the gotchas? Changing ERP is, you've implemented it for a living for many years. It's difficult. Yeah. It's a disruption to an entire business. When it comes to Great Plains to Business Central, what's your advice to those customers? What are the gotchas they've got to look out for as they plan?
Yeah, the biggest things for us, and the things that we really have to lift up the covers and look underneath, in a lot of detail. Again, the functionality is pretty straightforward, and you're going to see the benefit of the functionality and the improvements in the user experience and the integration and all that. But for us, the big things that drive a project and drive the complexity and drive the cost and drive the risk of a project are how much customization did you do to your existing system? And so we have to look at that customization and say, okay, well, do you still need it? Or does BC already have that, so we don't have to worry about it? So customization is one that we have to be careful about. Not so much in the GP world, but certainly in the NAV world, where clients had the ability and certainly took full advantage of customizing the heck out of their systems. That's a big challenge. Two is integrations. How many different systems do you have communicating with GP? And is it asynchronous? Is it bisynchronous? So integrations is a big challenge, and we have to take a look at that.
Topic dear to my heart.
Absolutely. And So integrations is another challenge, and then data. That's the third. Um, Having a intelligent conversations as to what you as an organization need going forward. I have some clients that say, I'm going to use this as an opportunity to start fresh. I want nothing. We'll start clean. And then I have other clients that have been on GP for 20 years, and they say, I want every bit of transactional level data for 20 years. And I'm like, we could do that. It's just a time and money exercise at that point. It's kind of like my golf game. If I put time and money at it, I'm going to get better. But I tend to not have both, and neither do my clients. So that's where we have to have conversations about what really makes sense, what really needs to come into BC. And then again, that's where we offer up the option for a lot of our clients saying, okay, let's give you the 3 years that you're used to so you can do historical analysis, trending analysis, and then let's spin up an Azure instance, put your GP database out there, put PopDoc on top of it to be able to pull up and do any and all kind of ad hoc queries that you might need to do for historical reference.
Yep.
Or compliance or tax or whatever the case may be. So that's been a big option of ours, is just saying, do you really, really need that, or do you really just need access to it in case of emergency?
Yeah, no, that's very, very spot on. I like the point you raised about integration. For me, cloud apps now, clients are buying the cloud app that their team chose. So it might be their project team went and found a really cool project management cloud app. The sales team decided that HubSpot was the perfect solution. Let's get that into marketing, and we'll buy that. The development team that writes software over here picked a different tool, and every company, there's bar none, have got 10, 15, 20 different pieces of software. Sometimes they don't even know. I'll talk to a controller and they go, no, we just use the ERP. But then you dig into it, and they've put, an expense management tool in. They've put a project management tool in. They've put a membership solution, and they've got endless. Everybody's got a CRM. There's a marketing tool, and it's getting wider and wider. So, I really think focusing on bringing all those together, making all those tools work like they were meant to work together, sharing the data between them, getting the data out of one app to the person that needs it. There's no point the controller not knowing what's going over in the project management app when they need to make decisions, and vice versa. There's financial decisions that the project team need to see and know. So sharing that data electronically, not by printing things out and dropping paper on people's desks at 9 a.m. in the morning so they're all smart. I think it's really approaching whatever move somebody makes ERP-wise with that in mind. Is really critical.
Absolutely. I was going to say, we're kind of saying here is that, in an ideal world, you capture data once and repurpose it as many times as you need. And so you figure out what the system of record is for that data, and you capture it once. And then again, using tools like E1, I can sit there and capture that data and push and pull it out anywhere I need to across multiple applications. And that's the world that we're getting in. We're getting to. 20 years ago, that was a pipe dream. In today's world, it's not, because we have the systems that can support it. We've got the connectors and integration tools that can support those types of things. But yeah, I've got a client now that grew through acquisition. So they've acquired 4 or 5 different firms. Well, guess what? They got 4 or 5 different ERP systems, 3 different CRM systems, and you start multiplying it in that situation exponentially. And it can be nightmarish.
Yeah, I'm one of those companies. I'm one of those companies that are still on Dynamics GP. That's our core accounting system, and I haven't made so that's why I'm having this conversation with you to work out what we do next. But recently we just acquired another data integration solution, and they happen to run Sage Intacct, and that's been their focus. So now I've got a company running Sage Intacct, and we're running GP, and I've got to mash together financials, or at least my financial CFO does. I don't need to, but it's a lot of work, and we're going to make some decisions about that before too long and see where we all end up. It might not be either of those platforms. So We got
Yep.
big decisions to make. You,
Well,
you mentioned you mentioned
we're still on
earlier
VP2. Yeah. So
you mentioned AI, and I want to come back to that because
yep.
that is something that everybody is talking about. I think most people don't know what they're talking about when they say AI, but they're talking about it anyway. I played 9 holes of golf yesterday with my next door neighbor who runs a fairly decent sized plumbing company. And he and his second in charge, both trained plumbers, were talking about how they're going to deploy AI to help in their estimating and their process for large construction. Um, Again, I don't think they knew what they were talking about,
hmm
but they already see it as a solution. So they're talking to people about how to use AI. What's your take on AI in the world of ERP right now?
Well, I have to go back to your earlier comment. I agree with you 100%. I think AI has been marketed very, very well. And is, the media has just jumped on it like a darling and said, this is our new darling. And this is, we're going to put this up on a pedestal and we're going to talk about it. But I don't think really most people quite understand it yet and really can understand what real world use cases would make sense for an organization.
Mm-hmm.
So I try to temper. I said, until we get to a point where we all understand it and we understand how it can benefit from us and how we can use it securely. That's the bigger thing in my mind. Is you don't go out there and put your financials in Chat GPT and expect that data not to show up somewhere else. Okay, recommendation. Okay, put some fences around what you're doing. So I think first and foremost, we have to understand it and we have to just take a deep breath and look at the organization as a whole and say, how can we best leverage this technology? Now there's certain areas where it's pretty obvious. Marketing is a simple one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. My ability to create content now has grown exponentially again, because I can sit out there and I can produce rich quality content very, very quickly. So we know we can do that, and we know there's benefits to the organization, when it comes to product descriptions and, maybe some imagery and those types of things. I can use AI all day long on that. Um, from a collection standpoint, I can sit there, or actually really more from a cash flow standpoint, I can analyze in an ERP system, going back to your question on ERPs, I can analyze and say, okay, I've got net 30 terms with my clients. So my cash flow should look like this. But I can, through AI, I can look at it and say, well, ABC company pays me in 24 days historically. XYZ company, those guys are sluggos. They pay me in 42 days. So I can sit there and apply AI to and my historical analysis to a cash flow forecast. And rather than forecasting it out over net 30 just based on the terms, I can sit there and go, no, this cash is going to come in 25 days. This is going to come in 42 days, 37 days. So I can get a lot more accurate cash flow forecasting in a position of cash for the company. So that's one real world benefit.
Yeah.
Um,
One of the things that we're doing here at E1, we're just starting to get excited about AI. Again, we took it slow to start, but there is some really cool things coming, and over the next, well, I don't know, 3-4 weeks, we'll be releasing some things that'll help not only the BC customers or on other platforms, but also for those that do decide to stick with GP for the next few years, giving them some access to some pretty cool AI functionality as well. And it's mostly around building pipelines, secure, as you said, secure private pipelines to your data that you could sit in Chat GPT and start asking questions about your data. And it's not public. You're not sharing it. You're not sending it anywhere else. And it's really cool. I literally played with this today. And I got a new build that I was doing some demo stuff with. And I was able to say to my Chat GPT, I said, give me a list of the last 20 support tickets and who the customers were that logged them. Now that went off to, in my case, to Zendesk, and pulled back a list of the companies that have lodged support tickets with us. Yep. Ace Micro wasn't one of them, so you went on the list. So, but it was real. But then I'm able to say, hey, for those guys that have been calling the support desk, and then I said, well, those that have called more than 5 times in the last month, now I want you to go and get me the revenue I've got from those 5 customers that have called more than 5 times. And it knew from my chat GPT that data's in GP. So it went off, it took those names, went off to GP and came back and said, hey, here's the revenue lines you've got from your most needy customers. Some were very needy with very little revenue, and some were high revenue. Yeah, I'd expect them to have support needs. So some of that kind of stuff, being able to use that native chat environment that people like for helping them write emails, helping them generate marketing, doing their kids' college homework, all those things that ChatGPT is good at. But being able to feed in real business apps and real business data securely, and be able to ask questions. Then I was able to say, for those 5 and the ones that are really needy, I said, go and create me an activity in CRM to call them. And it took those 3, went off to CRM and said, hey, let's call those 3 people, scheduled it for later this week. And so I can now go, hey, you guys, everything all right? You've had 5 calls, haven't sold much, but I'm supporting you a lot, and have a chat with their CEO or CFO or whoever it might be. And I'm like, there's a really cool use case for AI and connectivity. So it's an interesting one. You know, I sell integration for a living, which we would have done that in a much more complex project if somebody had come with those needs. But AI is starting to bridge those gaps now. There's some setup and work to make those things happen, but that piece I think is really cool.
But and that's a great story behind a great use case. But again, the fencing is the important part. You've got to protect your environment. You've got to put a fence around your systems, your data, and it's a combination of systems level access that people have, as well as training and training people. You just can't willy-nilly go out and start running ChatGPT in the public domain, because we don't know the implications.
You absolutely can't. No. So, you know, the model we're building is around our PopDoc solution, which already knows how to connect to ERP data, knows how to fence it. It's got its own security protocols. We determine who gets access to what. Everything's authenticated with tokens. So yeah, using that framework to then say, hey, let's expose this data to this set of people, because you don't want somebody, you know, that doesn't need to know what your margins are on the team getting access. So just like you always protected your data, you would do the same. But it may be really helpful for that person to be able to pull up a list of open purchase orders and learn some information about it without having to log into GP. And they're familiar with ChatGPT, so they can just say, hey, when is this item arriving? Or how many are going to be here by Friday? And ChatGPT can tell them without them having to go through a report and print it and so forth. So I think there's some really cool stuff there in that sense.
I think there's some really, really cool stuff, and Microsoft has jumped on the bandwagon, obviously, with Copilot, and you're seeing it become more and more pervasive across the entire platform. You know, it's NBC. It's going to continue. I mean, it's just amazing how I've not seen Microsoft spend so much time and money on something in a long time. You know, they spent a ton of money on BC. There's no doubt about it. But and they spent a ton of money on the Power Platform. But Copilot and AI, wow. You know, and I'm sure you feel the same way. I go into Microsoft meetings and I feel like they're not going to let me out until I get a Copilot tattoo on my shoulder and join the cult, you know. But I think it's going to be very interesting over the next 12 to 24 months as we all kind of better understand and grasp all the capabilities, and we identify the use case scenarios that a typical user is going to find valuable, and then be able to fulfill those use case scenarios in a secure fashion. You know, I think those are things that we're going to have to figure out very, very quickly.
Yeah, well, I'll hit you up in the next 3 or 4 weeks, and I'll show you some stuff that's getting me excited. So I'm old. I don't get excited about much, but this is. I'm getting a call from my developers every day going, do you want to see the new stuff we did last night? Do you want to see the new stuff? And it's really cool.
Yeah, Martin, you and I have been in this business for a long time, and I think that's, you know, what keeps me excited, what keeps me interested, what keeps me engaged is I'm like a little kid in the candy shop. Yeah. And this new technology comes out, and I'm like, wow, you know, maybe I don't understand it all, but that's really cool, and I'll figure it out. And I know that's what keeps me engaged, and I'm confident that's what keeps you engaged as well.
No, it's really fun. So I think we're heading towards our allotted time.
Yeah, absolutely. I just
What
had a
one? Yeah,
final thoughts. If you want me to share
yeah, do
those
that.
with you.
Well, one more question. There's,
Sure.
I've come across a number of GP customers that kind of feel a bit lost at the moment. Their partner that sold them GP a few years back has moved on, are focused on other things, aren't showing a lot of love, or have disappeared completely and not answering their calls.
Yep.
What's your message for those orphans that are out there?
Well, and you're right. There are a lot of them out there that, either their partner's disappeared, or their partner has just not provided them the support. And to my point earlier is I think that partners in this situation are extremely important, because we are that conduit between Microsoft and the client, the end client and user. And the biggest part that we do early on is education, of just educating you on what are your options, what are the timelines. And so, we as partners need to be sensitive to the fact that not everybody's ready, has the same level of understanding, the same level of readiness. So, providing education, providing the training, providing the options, providing the timelines, I think is important. And then as we start getting more and more serious in those discussions, and further down the planning pipeline, we can start getting into some of these programs that Microsoft has empowered us with, like the assessments, like the transitional licensing models, like the delivery dollars that we can apply for. So we understand we're here to work with GP clients, whether they're our own or whether they're orphaned. We're happy to step in, happy to assist in that training, in that education, and more importantly, happy to work with you on your timeline, not Microsoft's, but yours, and putting together a plan of what makes sense for you. And if that's, gee, I need to move in 6 months, or how can I extend GP out as long as possible? Okay. Um, we're going to work with you. We're not going to go away. The GP community is too tight knit, and too strong of a community to abandon anyone. We just want to do the best job possible and make the best recommendations we can that work with you and your business. So that's where ACE comes in, and I hope I know that's where E1 comes in, because you guys have taken a big stand on continuing to support the GP community.
We gave everybody 10 years,
Yeah,
so we're here for another 10, and I think I'll still be looking after customers. Well, maybe not me, somebody will be looking after customers in 10 years' time. Hopefully I'm like you, we're playing some more golf, but you never know.
exactly.
Yeah,
But no, I mean, that's
so
the
just to
message.
clarify that, there still is a window
Mhm.
for that person that doesn't want to move and wants to stick with GP for the next 10 years. They can. Not
They can.
recommended, not recommended, but
Not recommended, but they
it's
can.
possible.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about that before. As it's not like, December of 2029, GP is just going to stop working. Okay, when the end of life date finally hits, GP is going to still function. And there's critical support out to 2031. Um, and I know a lot of the ISVs, again, you guys included, have said, "Hey, we're gonna support this even beyond the end of life date Microsoft has announced." You start getting into questions on how much further after that you can do that, and we talked about, well, a lot of times it's an infrastructure question more so than it is an applications question. Can you sustain an infrastructure to support it? With the right versioning and all of that. But those are conversations we need to have. Those are plans we need to make. And if the plan is I need to move and I want to move now, fantastic. If the plan is I want to stretch this out, for a period of time, then we need to have those discussions as well. And I think you'll find an open audience, not only with you, with ACE and with your partner, but with the ISVs as well.
Perfect. Very good. It's been a fun discussion. We should do this more.
Yeah.
So I will throw to you final thoughts for the people that get this far in our video and are still hanging in there. Then they want to hear how we wrap this up. So I'll hand that to you.
Yeah, well, no, again, I appreciate the conversation. It has been a fun conversation, Martin. I always enjoy catching up with you, whether it's, on a call like this, or, around a table somewhere at Directions or Microsoft Summit. So certainly do appreciate that. And I think the final message is the partners are here to support you. I think BC is the direction, is the future. for Microsoft, and we need to recognize that and respect that. But at the same time, you've got options.
Yeah,
Okay.
and just on that one, I think something I'd kind of forgotten for like those orphan customers that coming back to the partner for that promotional pricing, don't just look up on the internet and go, this is how much BC is going to cost, or hear about it, and then compare that with something else and make a decision. Like, you've got to go through your partner to understand your options and the
Abs-
pricing and the promotional stuff and how Microsoft will help. Otherwise, you'll miss that.
Yep, absolutely. You're absolutely right because you go out there and you can see the list price. You're going to see the list price, but as a a valued GP client that's still current on your support, you've got better options out there. But you have to talk to your partner about it because you're right, it's not publicized out there. Those are not on public
Mm,
sites. So you've got to talk to your partner, and
critical.
if you don't have a partner, feel free to reach out to Ace, talk to your valued ISVs, and have them recommend a partner. But you really need to, at this point in time, even if it's just planning, you need to be locked arm with your partner at this point and come up with that. What's the next 12, 24, 36 months going to look like for us, and what are the steps we can take? And we don't have to eat the elephant in one bite. We can take bite-sized chunks and kind of move towards a goal.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and a good partner is going to work with you on that.
Absolutely. That's been fantastic. So thank you, Mark. Thank you to
Yep,
the whole
absolutely.
Ace team
Martin,
who are ready to help.
yeah,
Um, and yeah, enjoy the rest of your day.
absolutely. You do the same, and we appreciate the partnership we have with you and all the good things you're doing. And I want to see this. I want to see this AI tool. I'm excited.
It's coming your way. So I'll put you on
Awesome.
top of the list of beta partners we'll show it to.
Love
Get
to
some
see it.
feedback. So good
Love to
stuff.
see it.
Thanks, Mark.
All right.